two-row variety of barley
yeah.
is the most commonly used one in Canada. It actually has less husk on it. Because there's only 2 rows of barley seeds on the actual plant, each one of them's fatter. With 6-row, they're all really crowded on the plant, so they're skinnier. They're kind of scrunched in together, and so each one's actually skinnier. And if you remember your grade 11 physics, surface area to volume is proportional. Basically, the larger the volume is, the surface area relative to that volume is disproportionately small. So the fatter something is, the less surface area it is relative to its weight.
Right.
So what I'm getting at there is that 2-row barley, which is fatter, actually has a lower proportion of husk relative to the endosperm, or the
so
starch that we're
usable?
after. More usable, exactly. It has way more usable stuff. And a lot of the off flavors and the harsh flavors, not off flavors, I'd say harsh flavors, or the kind of bite that certain beers have, come from the husk, come from tannins that are in the husk. So if you can use a variety of barley that has more starch, which will give you more sugar, and less husk, proportionate to that sugar, it will wind up making a kind of smoother, rounder beer.
So what about dehusking it altogether? Could you do that?
No, we don't. There are certain types of malt. Wheat malt is the main one that won't have any husk on it, because the husk actually separates from the rest of the seed when you malt it. But we need the husk. The husk is very important to first step, or actually the second step of brewing, which is lautering, which is actually separating the sugar from the solids in the mash. What we do is crush up the malt. We complete this process that the plant had begun, where these enzymes are used to attack the starches that are in there, convert them to sugar. That's what happens in a mash, whether it's in a brewery or a distillery. Once that starch conversion has happened, what we will do is then pump this whole sticky, sweet mess of mash over into, it starts out like bread dough, starts out like Red River cereal, just starchy, stodgy porridge.
And smelling good, if I can say so myself.
It smells really good,
yeah.
But in about half an hour, 45 minutes, it turns to really sweet mash. All the starch is hydrolyzed to sugar, and it's all of a sudden incredibly malty smelling. It smells like Ovaltine. It smells like Maltesers. It's got this really sweet malt smell to it.
And that's called wort, right?
That's called wort. That's sweet mash. That's and what we'll do is separate the sweet wort, which is exactly what you're talking about. The liquid fraction of that is called sweet wort.
Oh, okay.
The sweet wort will then get separated mechanically from the rest of the mash by spraying water on top of the mash. The lauter tun, or the lautering vessel, it's called in a brewery, has a false bottom, has like a sieve bottom, a screen bottom that will hold back all the husk. We'll spray water on top of it and let that water percolate down through, and it sweeps all the color, it sweeps the flavors, it sweeps some of the proteins, it sweeps all the sugar over into the kettle, which we then boil. That's what we're after. You're exactly right. Is that sweet wort. All the different colors of beer come from different colors of barley. Okay, malt is incredibly important. It's often referred to as the soul of beer. It's absolutely essential to beer that malt is used to manufacture it. It's responsible for all the color. Every single, if you imagine a lager beer, a light yellow colored lager beer, it's made with pale malt. It will be made with pale barley malt like this, straw-colored barley.
Can I taste that?
Yeah, absolutely. And the straw-colored barley donates no color other than straw color, so you wind up with all these pale lagers. If you start adding darker colored malts to it, we have some caramel malt here, and we have some chocolate malt here. And if you start getting into these other roasted malts, these are the same as the pale malt that's made. It's malted, it's kilned, it's dried, and then they'll put it into drum roasters, same way they roast coffee, for example, and they will heat it up very, very high temperatures while keeping it moving so it doesn't burn. It doesn't burst into flames, is the other concern with roasters. And they will roast it to all different degrees of color, and brewers will use different proportions of different colored malts, and they all have slightly different flavors, slightly different caramel flavors, slightly different roast flavors, and they will blend those together and make the tapestry of flavors that you wind up with in beer. And it's
so if I taste these, will it give me an idea of what it tastes
absolutely.
like in the beer? Is this
This one is caramel malt, which is much more sort of caramelly. Literally, it tastes almost like Ovaltine, or tastes like really sweet breakfast cereal.
Well, that's nice.
Yep. It's also really hard. It's really almost like glass.
It's crunchy.
And the reason why is because the sugars are actually in this one, in caramel malts. They also call them crystal malts. The sugars have actually already been made by the maltsters. The maltsters will keep the malt wet, and they will heat it up to the point where the starches convert to sugars, and then they roast it. And so they caramelize that sugar that's in there, which is also why it's really crunchy.
I think I'm going to have another little bit of that.
Yeah, that stuff's good.
It's yummy. So what are we looking at now?
This one here, this type of malt is called chocolate malt. And there's no chocolate in it. It's just roasted highly to a color where the color actually approaches chocolate color. It also does have some kind of chocolate mocha, kind of chocolate coffee flavors when used in beer. We use it here at Mill Street in our coffee porter. We also use it in some of our dark beers. It's also in our tank house. It's used to tint the color of our tank house and also give it a slightly roasted kind of biscuity flavor as well. And they're used in dark beers. If you use up to about 7, 8, 9, definitely 9% chocolate malt in any beer, it'll be black. It'll be so black that you can't see through it. It'll be like a
so
stout.
very little you need.
Small amount. You need less than 10% to bring it into blackness. After that, it's how black you want it.
So if you put more in, would it taste burnt then?
It tastes stronger and stronger and stronger roast flavor. Yeah, but once you get past about 9%, it's black optically. Yeah, so it depends what you want to do with it. But that's a very good question you asked, because it can be used both for color and also for flavor. And you can go past the point where it's black. As Spinal Tap used to say, it's so black it's silver.
Yeah.
You can put it in, and all you do is just get all the roasted flavors get more and more and more intense. In something like the coffee porter that we make here at Mill Street, it's made with coffee, which is added in the kettle of flavor. I'll talk about that a little bit later when we taste some of the beers. But the depth of color and the depth of flavor that it has comes from this really massive use of chocolate malt. And
so the color of a beer has nothing to do with whether it's a lager or an ale?
No, nothing.
A common misconception.
It is, but it's a correct misconception in that it's a traditional misconception in that most lagers are pale and most ales are darker. It's still to this day, even in modern times, dark lagers aren't very common. But having said that, light ales are fairly common. You do get very, very low colored ales around.
I noticed touching this that it's warm. What's going on?
Yeah, it is warm. We've got a brew in there right now. We'll go up and take a look at it in a minute. But,
Can we?
Absolutely. We've got a Pilsner that's mash that's in there right now, and it's just going through its conversion from starch to sugar. So we'll go up and take a look.
Let's do that.